Well, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, depending on where you are, or good morning, perhaps even. This is Tim64 with today's Jackpot Live Coaching. If someone can let me know that you can hear me, that would be helpful. I'm going to assume that you can. And what I'm going to do now is just switch the scene so that you can see my screen. And hopefully what you can see is the thread that I've just created earlier on today, and that's got the details of the forthcoming coachings that we're going to be doing in this format of jackpot, spin, twister, sit and goes. So up here you can see I've got the dates, proposed dates of those sessions and what we're going to be running through. We're going to do mainly live play like we'll be doing today, but with just a little bit of sort of basic theory, just some kind of do's and don'ts and some basic ranges to get you started. Okay, so welcome to everyone. I can see that we've got a few guys here already, so thank you very much for coming. And if someone can just give me the go ahead, we'll get started with some play on full tilt. So let's get that out of the way. All right. So I'm just assuming you guys can hear me. So far no one said that you can't, so we'll get started. So here I've got my full tilt lobby, and today we're going to be playing the $2.50 jackpot sit and goes. So let's go ahead and load the first one up. So I'm going to click on register, and then we go. All right, and there's the table just popped up. That's great. So hopefully you can all see that. Hoping for a big multiplier here. All right, so we've got a 2x1, so 2 times our buy-in to play for. And we start off with Jack 4 in the small blind. Up here, we can see that the button's playing with a mobile phone. He's making a big raise here. Usually I'd recommend just go with a 2 times the big blind raise. We're not going to play our Jack 4, so we just go for a fold here. So the two things here, this playing with the mobile phone and this 3 times raise, probably tells us that our opponent may not be the strongest. So he's bet a little bit over half pot here on this fairly dry board, king deuce 3, got check raised here, and then shoved all in over the top. So this check raise was presumably a bluff by this player here. Alright, so we'll go ahead and mark him. Pocket sevens, we're going to raise them up from the button here with 25 big blinds. If we get 3-bet shoved on, we're going to go ahead and call this hand without knowing too much about our opponents. We could open shove this hand, but we get a little bit more value by min-raising. See a flop. It's not a great flop for us. We can represent having hit this board, so we can often c-bet this board, but it's quite often that one of our opponents will have an ace or a queen some of the time. So we'll go ahead and bet. Not going to bet too big and just try and take the pot down using these scare cards here, hoping that our opponents don't have anything. If we get a call on this board, we usually have to give up on the turn. So let's see who we've got. We've got Try to Win 88. Hello from Germany. Hello there. And we've got Slick 3. Hello to you too. We've got Stevie75. I think you mentioned you were going to try and make it today, so welcome. So we've got a limp from the small blind. With Queen 9, you can do either checking here or raise. I often like to raise these hands with decent medium high card value because it gives us the initiative in the hand. Sometimes we're going to just win the pot outright, and if we get called, we can go from there. This is obviously not a good board for our hand, but we're still going to see better if we get checked too. If our opponent leads here, he's usually telling us that he has some part of this board, and since we haven't hit, we can just go ahead and give up on the pot. The stream should be online, so Gotti Steam should be online. So Hopefully I'm not talking to myself. Okay, looks like you guys are having problems seeing this, so let's see what's going on here. Why is that not working? All right, let's just see what we can do about this. Go ahead and broadcaster. Should be working. So we're just shipping here with the top pair versus this bet. Sound and picture good. Okay, thanks very much, Statman024 and Jimmy Chu. That's helpful. Was panicking there that no one could hear me. Okay, so we have a raise from speed load. He only has 7.3 big blinds. So with the ace, just going to go ahead and shove here. We would have to call if he shoved, so we'll just see here that he has the same hand as us, so that's good. We need a few more spades to come out, we'd be good. All right. So Willie King, you asked about the link. What you need is the link that's posted in on the right there, and I'll try and post it again with the 6-9 suited for 5-6 big blinds. We're just going to go ahead and shove. So no sound. Just go ahead and try reloading Stevie75. The stream is definitely running according to some of you guys. So the 5-8, we're going to just go ahead and fold here on the button. Just go ahead and try and reload your replayer. We'll go ahead and fold our 8-4 offsuit here to the button raise. Yeah, it's showing up as fold our 8-4 offsuit here to the button raise. Yeah, it's showing up as fold our 8-4 offsuit here to the button raise. Yeah, showing up as streaming on my internet, so I think that's good. You want to go to the main homepage on Poker Strategy and then click on the live coachings. We'll go ahead and fold this Jack 4 while I'm just explaining. Go ahead and go to the live coachings, and then there's a tune in button, and that will get you the replayer so you can chat. And then once you've clicked on that, that should take you to a screen where you can see the replay. You may need to refresh it once or twice, but I'm being told that it's working, so fingers crossed. All right, so we have a min raise here. It's not a min raise actually, it's this 80 into 30. So with the king deuce, I'm not going to defend this hand, we'll just go for a fold. Okay. So thanks very much, M. Kane. It looks like you're trying to post the link there. Okay, so 3-7 again, not strong enough to play, so we'll look to fold that one. Sounds like I'm recording in the bathroom. Yeah, I promise you I'm not recording in the bathroom. Yeah, so I think with this hand, we're definitely going to defend against this raise. We can 3-bet shove here. I think that's reasonable. So let's just have a look at this guy's stats. Yeah, first in raise. So we'll just go with a call this time. We could 3-bet shove this hand, but our hand plays very well, even out of position. So we're happy to see a flop. If you hear any flushing, Jimmy, you'll definitely be entitled to be worried. Yeah, so not a good board for our hand. We do have a backdoor flush drawn to diamonds, but it's a fairly solid bet. So I'm just going to go ahead and look to fold. Yeah, I just had the my internet on just so I could see that the stream was working, and I've switched it off now, so hopefully not too much more echo. So again, we've flopped top pair, top kicker. Very happy to get it in here. I think our hand is so strong on this board that we're actually going to call here and let our opponent bet one more street and then just be shoving pretty much any turn card. Of course, he could have a flush now, but we're not going to be getting away from it, so just going to be betting 185. And if he check shoves, I'm going to call it off because he can have some hands other than a flush here. So different kind of flushing. So once again, raise here, 10-4, we don't want to defend that. One thing what I would say about this opening raise size from him is it makes it very committing for him. If he makes it, 2.5x each time and I 3-bet shove, then he's got a lot of money invested and it's hard for him to fold. So once again, this small lead from him. With the back doors here of spades and a 10, I'm going to just make a small raise here. I don't really want to call. I mean, calling is fine here, but I prefer raising, and we get shoved on, so I think we can make a fold here. We sometimes have the best hand if he has a hand like 10-jack, but against his overall range, I think we're good there. And with the ace-9 suited, he's been raising almost every hand, so we would definitely be happy to 3-bet shove. Against the limp, I'm again just going to go ahead and push. Happy to get this hand in here. And he does limp fold there. 3-5, not quite strong enough to play, but we'll maybe try, we'll maybe choose a slightly better hand to limp stab. We get something a little bit better than 3-5, we'll maybe try and limp that against him. Alright, so once again that raise, I'm going to just fold the king 4. Okay, so MK has kindly posted the link there. It's the, looks like the BG Bulgarian link, but if you just use your own link, you should be fine. So we'll go ahead and raise this. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and push this hand actually. We can min raise this hand, but I'm just going to go ahead and push here. We're running a little bit low here. So you're saying if you, so Stevie, you said, is VPIP any 2 not working on lower limits? So what you're saying is it not okay to just raise any 2 cards? I would say that it's unlikely to be profitable to raise any 2 cards, even at the very low limits. So we'll just check here, we don't have much on this board. I would definitely tend to raise pretty widely from the button, but I think any 2 is going a little bit too far. You become sort of too easy to get 3-bet. Okay, so with deuce 9 here, we just have to go ahead and fold. We have now 11.7 big blinds, so most of the hands we're going to be playing, like this one here, just going to be push or fold hands. So this one, if we get raised, we're going to 3-bet shove. And if our opponent pushes all in, I think we're going to go ahead and call this hand as well. Okay, so against the limp, just trying to pick up this 100 chips in the pot. So we're just shoving all in. Just move that HUD out of the way. And he obviously has some sort of hand here because he's thinking about calling, but lets it go in the end. 4-6, yeah, let's just try a limp stab here. Not the best hand, but we'll just see how he reacts. Yeah, I mean, what you said, Gothy Steam, is that people, fold too much out of position. I'm not really sure that's true. Again, we have this opponent leading into us, and here we have trips. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and call, hope that he bets again. We have now a full house, so really hope that he does have the flush. Okay, so he bets here. It's a pretty small bet, but I'm just gonna make a small raise to like 110. We just need to get a little bit more money in the pot here, and hopefully again he shoves on top, and hopefully he shoves the river and we get to call. Flush would be very nice, and then just get the money in. Okay, and fold. So lots of extra value there from, let's say, slow playing our hand. Yeah, you can definitely push any ace and king from 10 to 15 big blinds up. That would be fine. So we have the jack 9 here. Our effective stack is the shorter of the 2 stacks, so 9.3 big blinds. So this is a fine hand to push. So we'll just get the money in and hope that our opponent doesn't have a hand. He does make the call. It's a good call by him with any ace here, but we're not doing too badly against his hand. Okay, so we don't win that flip. Okay, so we're going to check here. Not much we can do with 9-3. Flop a pair, so we're going to go ahead and check here. This is probably strong enough now to check raise all in, especially when this guy's being so aggressive. You can see here, aggression factor is 12. Now, he definitely could have a king here, or you could have a better 9, but there's too much money in the pot against someone who's been betting this much not to get our hand in. And we can definitely get called by a worse hand here, maybe, you know, hand like 8-10 or 7x or even, you know, queen high or something like that. So definitely against all this betting that we've seen from him, our hand is good enough to get it in here. Yeah, so what you said, I mean, he does have top pair here, so it took a long time to call with top pair. I would have been fairly happy in his shoes calling it off there. And so we're out of that one. Okay, so we'll say yes to play again, reload. Yeah, so Stevie, what you're asking is whether you can limp stab those hands which are not strong enough to raise, I think. And I would say you can, but you have to adjust if your opponent's aggressive. So if your opponent starts raising your limps, then obviously you need to adjust. Okay, so this is good. We have a 4x multiplier here, playing for $10 now. Okay, so we have this opponent limping from the small blind. Our hand's pretty trashy, 9-3, so we're happy to just see a free flop here. We flop a pair of 3s. So having the fact that he's checked to us means I'm just going to go ahead and bet. I'd bet most of my range here, even if I didn't have a pair. If I check back here, I would have to call a turn bet anyway from this opponent. So we can check here again now, or we can bet one more time. There's not much more value here, so I'm going to just check and see what the river brings. Not a great river card, but he checks once again, so he's letting us see showdown now. So some of the time our pair of 3s will be good. So let's see what he has. Okay, so he had a better pair and checked to induce us to bet, so that worked out well. And limping again, though, I think from the button he should mostly be raising here. So this is close with the queen 5 about whether we can complete. I think for 10 more chips with our queen high value, we can just check. We flop a pair. I'm going to go ahead and lead here, because unless someone has a 7, we'll mostly have the best hand here. If someone raises like this, I'm going to go ahead and fold. He played his 5 fairly passively, and this is a big raise. So given that he saw that we bet with a pair last time, I'm going to just go ahead and give him credit for having a 7 or a bigger hand than I had. So just bet fold there. Jack 8, I'm going to raise from the button. Has reasonable playability. We get 2 calls. We flop a pair once again. Not super happy on this board with the overcard. So we might check back here and see what the turn brings. Brings another queen. That's a good card for us because it means the chances of our opponents having the queen is that much smaller. I think now we can get some value with our 8. There are some worse 8s that can call us. And we get called here. Not too happy about seeing this 3. I don't think there's any more value now because the draw's missed. Like if he had a hand like 9-10 or 10-jack, he's missed. Obviously, if he has a queen or a 3, we're beaten. So we just check back and hope that our 8 is good. And yes, it is good. So we might see what he's showing up there. So you got this theme. You're suggesting completing low aces. And I think that's okay, but usually those aces, you can shove them first in from the small blind for 15. So we're going to go ahead and push our pocket 10s here against the 2 limps. We could raise, that would be reasonable, but if we get 1 or 2 callers and overcards, we're not going to be too happy with our hand. Plus, if we shove here, we can still get called off by hands like this. But definitely not a good long-term plan to be limp calling an ace on the button. It works out well for him here, but he is getting his money in bad there, so definitely will make the same play each time. And with the ace 3 against another limp, once again, with only about 5 big blinds, we're just going to push on him and hope that he can either limp call with worse or just fold and give us the pot. Yeah, so he does a game call with worse, so we're not running too good here, so we need a little bit of help. No help for us. But getting our money in good twice there, so not much more we can do. So we'll load another game. All right. Oops, let's get rid of that one. We don't want to play 2 at once. So it depends a lot on your opponents about which hands you should complete. In the sessions coming up over the next few weeks, I'll be looking at some sort of, let's say, starting ranges that you can do. Let's try limp stab here since we've been talking about limp stabbing. See what our opponent does. He just checks there. We don't have anything on this board, but we're going to represent a hand and we're going to bet. If our opponent has an ace, a 7 or 8, he's obviously going to call. If he decides to bluff, then he can do that. We can't do much once he calls, which is why limp stabbing can backfire, because you can get taken off your hand very easily. This is obviously again a bad card for us because one of the hands that he will call on the flop is an 8, so we just have to check fold here. We have really no value. We could bluff here, but you know, we usually just, when we take a limp stab line, we're usually going to take one stab at the pot, and if our bet gets called, we're usually having to shut down unless we improve or unless we have a real hand. So pocket 6 is just going ahead and raising here. Get 2 callers. Once again, similar to the other pot, this is a good board for us to represent. There are definitely, with the flush draw here, it's slightly more likely to get called if we bet here. But I think, again, I'm just going to take the line of betting and hoping that these scary high cards do the trick of getting 2 folds. As I said before, if we get called on this board, we pretty much have to shove down. But I think usually in that situation, it's better to bet than... yeah. Thanks very much, Teddy, for that plug. We did, just before hopefully at the beginning of the coaching, I just did show people the thread. So I was just talking about the new course. We got a min raise here from button. I think King 6 is not strong enough to call. Maybe a hand like King 8 suited would be where our calling range would start there, depending on what we thought about our opponents. So just go ahead and mark this guy. So yeah, over the next 4 or 5 weeks, we're going to be looking at these ranges in a little bit more detail just to get you started. There, the 7 deuce. Since the limp stab that we took last time didn't work out so well, he called and then bet the river. We're not going to try and repeat that. We need a slightly better hand to take that line again. 8-7, right on the border. You can raise this, but I'm going to go ahead and fold it. So I've just got some questions here from Gothy's team. So let me just see if I can, what you're saying. So you're saying, yeah, limp stabbing bottom of the range. Now for 25 big blinds, you complete the low aces. For 20 big blinds, you can 3-bet shove any ace against people who aren't complete nits. Absolutely, I agree with that again. So we get this guy shoving here. Grisbeck calls all in, and we're getting very good odds. I think we can push here, but I'd rather just see a flop and then decide whether I want to commit any more money. This is enough here to commit. We have an open-ended straight flush draw, so I'm going to just go ahead and put the rest of my stack in. I could bet here, but if I can get this opponent to fold an 8 or a 10, that's a decent result to me. So we'll just go ahead and shove here. We get a very quick call from him. He has top 2 pair, but we're not doing too bad, even against top 2 pair here. So we do hit our flush draw and our straight draw for good measure, just to make absolutely sure. So we could have shoved pre-flop, but then we would have been getting our money in bad there. So obviously we didn't get our money in too great, but never doing too badly with so much equity. We can actually see here if we just... So up against Jack 5 here, so we are in flip, hoping to win that one, but we don't. So let's just have a look, see how much equity we had there on the flop. Yeah, so we're actually up against a higher flush draw from the player, but he was all in, so it didn't matter. So against this other player, we were doing very well. Obviously going to be min raising the queens, happy to get those in. Yeah, so MK, what you've asked is about the consolation prizes and the bigger ones. They definitely do make a difference. The fact that you're guaranteed to, when you do hit one of those high multipliers, it means that you're guaranteed to take something home. So what that does is to reduce a little bit the variance. The other thing, just to point, you can see here this discuss deal option over here on full tilt. This is the only site, as far as I'm aware, that you can actually agree to split prizes in a sort of ad hoc fashion. So that's something to be aware of. 3-9 suited, yeah, again, a little bit short. I'm going to go ahead and fold this one. It doesn't have that much playability. If we get something a little bit stronger, we can maybe try limp stab. Again, ace queen obviously raising and happy to get this in against the 3-bet. Okay, we do get called. Not a good board for us here. We don't hit anything. We can't do much if our opponent leads. Like if we raise here, we're basically turning our ace high into a bluff. Of course, we can call, but when there are only 6 cards in the deck that we're really happy with, I think it's okay to just let this one go. So Gothi's team, you were asking about flatting aces, I think, as well. There's a big difference between flatting an ace in position and flatting an ace out of position. One of the reasons for that, we're just going to fold our 3-7 here. We are in position, but the hand doesn't have too much playability. We haven't had any raises from this player yet, playing 45-0, so I tend to give his raising range a bit more credit, a bit more strength. So when we're in position, what that means is we get to show down a lot more often. And what that means is we get to realize the value of our ace high. So here you can see we have about 11 big blinds with our ace 3. I'm going to go ahead and push this hand as being the best overall line. If we go for a min raise here and we get called, we're not going to like many flops. So we're going to shove and hope that we can either make people fold hands like, you know, king 9 or king 10, possibly even some weaker aces, and then just hopefully pick up the chips. So we get to see a free play with our 10-6 suited here. So happy to check. See the flop, not much fuss there. Have a gut shot, but it's not a clean gut shot because there are clubs here. So, you know, if the 9 of clubs come out, we wouldn't be certain we have the best hand. So we're just going to go ahead and check fold here. Of course, if we get to see a free turn, that's nice. With a bet and a call here, it does make our call have better odds, but it also means the likelihood that one of these players has a club draw increases because they're both happy with this flop, and therefore that makes it more likely that that 9 of clubs is going to be a bad card for us. So we'll go ahead and fold our gut shot there. So that would have given us second pair, but still wouldn't have been too happy to have second pair here after a bet and a call in this board. So we'll see whether the player who bet the flop bets. There's our 9. So we should have, and then we're getting a bet here. So well, let's see what they both show up here. So we get a bet and a fold here on the river. So once again, ace queen, very happy to go broke with this hand. And yeah, once again, I think for 12 big blinds, we're going to go ahead and shove this one. I think 40, you know, definitely min raise. You definitely can raise here. Can go for a min raise, but I'm going to go ahead and shove because my opponent is under 10 big blinds here. So it's, as I say, part of it is what the effective stack is. Ace 3 suited, a little bit close here. I'm going to go for a min raise, and I'll fold if the big blind 3-bet shoves into me. If the small blind 3-bet shoves into me, it's a little bit more awkward, which he does. So it's tough here. We're getting pretty good odds, but he's been fairly passive. So I definitely think you could make this call here, but our stack's decent. I'm going to go ahead and fold there. Okay, we get a raise from the small blind, let that deuce 5 go. 7-9 offsuit, it's going to be strong enough to push from the small blind for less than 10 big blinds. As you can see, the advantage of pushing is it doesn't give your opponent any option. So again, with the 9s, we could raise here and try and induce a light 3-bet shove. A little bit more happy about doing that, so let's try that. Maybe we can get someone to 3-bet shove. Yeah, okay, not too happy about this ace. But I think if he had an ace, he would have 3-bet. So I'm definitely going to bet this board. Very unlikely he has a 3. If he does 3-bet shove, we'll have to see. I'm probably going to call this off here. Sometimes we're going to see an ace, but yeah, we do see an ace here. So normally I would have expected him to 3-bet shove the hand, so that's why I made the call here. I bet fairly small on the flop to induce a sort of bluff raise there, and it turned out he had an ace, so didn't work out too well. I'll try and get the 4-colored deck if I can, so bear with me while I do that. Oops, let's get rid of this one first. Okie doke, let's try and do that. So that served me right for not shoving the pocket 9s. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and raise our queen 9 here from button. Okay, so we've got the 9 of clubs appearing there, so it looks like we've got that activated. So we're getting a lead here on this board. I think our hand's strong enough to raise, so I'm going to make a raise here with our top pair. And we get called. This is more or less of a blank turn, so unless our opponent has a higher queen than us, I think our hand's mostly good. So we're definitely going to bet here and get the money in. Definitely he can have spades, he can have a flush draw, and again the river's a blank, so if he shoves I'm calling. If he checks, then we have a more difficult decision. Definitely calling here if he has a better queen, that's bad luck. Yeah, he did turn his hand into a bluff here with a 10, so I don't like the line he took. I think on the river he can check that second pair and just decide whether he thinks his hand's good. So you get a limp from button, king 4 suited. I think I could raise this, but I'm just going to go ahead and check and see a flop. Don't flop anything, so we'll just check. Hand like probably king 8 suited, king 9 suited, I'd be much more likely to raise that against the limp. So we'll continue to check down. This 10 brings a lot of draws, so we're happy to just give up here against a bet. Okie dokes. So we have the 10-6. Yeah, let's try and limp stab this. It's not quite strong enough to raise. We could raise it. It's not terrible, but the hand has some playability. We get a lead here. Again, we have second pair with a decent kicker here, so I'm never going to be folding on this board. The question is whether we should be raising or just calling. I think a small raise is okay here. It's going to help define our hand. If he shoves, we can probably let go of our hand here. But against the call, we don't mind too much. So I'm going to check back the turn having raised, and we'll see what the river brings. This is a good card for his leading range, because one of the hands that he might lead would be a diamond draw. But we're happy to check back, because we still have the same hand, and so we'll see whether it's good. Yeah, we do have the best hand here. I don't think there's any value, any more value at any point in that hand. So he did have a worse 6 there, so our raise on the flop got us some value. And let's see here. So we have 20 big blinds. I think it would be fine to 3-bet shove this ace-3 suited. I'm going to go ahead and make a call instead, just to keep the variance a little bit lower. This player hasn't raised any hands yet, I don't believe. Yeah, we've had, no raises from him, so. Again, super good card for us. I'm going to check and call any bet here now. Very unlikely we have the worst hand. Now there's a full house on board. I'm going to go ahead and bet here, just in case he can fold a hand. Mostly we'll have the best hand anyway. So just chop the pot there. So checking down was good there. So now that we've seen him raising queen 3 from the button, I'm going to be much more comfortable in future 3-bet shoving any ace against him. So 9-6, we'll just try a limp stab with this hand. Not quite strong enough to push. And we get raised here. I don't think we can quite call this. Maybe 9-6 suited would be okay to call. So we'll just go ahead and give up the pot there. So Teddy, you've asked about pot size or over pot. Were you talking about the raise with our 6 or what? Yeah, I'll turn the sounds off. Apologies for that. Yep. Let's do that now. Okie doke. So, yeah, we get a lead on this board. So he was checking down queen high, so I'm happy to fold my 10 high. Okay, so got ace deuce here. We can shove this hand for 15 big blinds, but I'm going to go with the min raise. Thank you, Stevie. Apologies I didn't do that earlier. So 6-2 of hearts. Again, very happy to see a free flop. Every time this player limps the button instead of raising, when we have a hand that we would have folded to a raise, we're getting, let's say, free value. We're getting a free look at the flop. Now, we're not going to hit very well, very often with this kind of hand, but once in a while we'll hit a flush draw or a flush 2 pair. It certainly doesn't harm us here, which is why if someone limps from the button, you want to have a fairly decent hand before you start raising their limps, because they'll often call you and then you're out of position with a bad hand, and that's no fun indeed. So Jack 3 suited. Yeah, we'll try a limp stab here. I wouldn't hate raising this hand, but we'll just see what happens. And again, on this board, I'm just going to go ahead and bet. My Jack high has some showdown value. I didn't mean to bet pot size there, so that was a pretty bad bet sizing error for that. I mean, obviously, my opponent's never going to have a pair there, so it's very hard for him to call anyway, but you want to watch those bet sizing errors because they can be very costly if you get called or check raised on that board. So any sort of bet of half pot would be fine there. So 10-7 suited, a little bit stronger this hand, a bit more playability. So I'm going to go for a min raise. Then we can fold against the 3-bet shove. Once again, it's a nice dry board here, so I'm just going to be betting a little bit under half pot. Very unlikely that we get called on this board. Our opponent can really only call us if he has a king or a 5. And good kings, he's mostly going to 3-bet shove. So there shouldn't be too many kings in this range. And this is close now with the 10-8 suited. I think given the odds, we can go ahead and call this one. Since we've seen him playing hands like Queen 3 offsuit, I think we can go ahead and call. Nothing for us here apart from gut shot. Once again, the gut shot though is it's not a clean gut shot because the 9 of diamonds doesn't, make our hand. So, I think we just go ahead and fold this hand. We're looking for a little bit more equity there to continue. And ace 5, again with not much playability, and our opponent's now down to about 12 big blinds, just over 12, so we're going to go ahead and push our ace 5 here. And Queen Jack's going to be good enough to get the money in here again. Now that we've seen him raising hands like Queen 3, we have to just take this hand and 3-bet shove. If he does have a strong hand, it's going to be, annoying, but I think we'd be just missing too much value to just call there. So we have a flip here. So it's interesting that he made a slightly smaller raise with the 5s. I don't know whether he was trying to get action on this hand, but I think with this hand, similar to the ace 5, it's not such a strong hand that you're really desperate to see a flop. With his stack of about 10 big blinds, I would have probably just been pushing that. So we'll play a game. That's good to have a 4x multiplier there. Let's see if we can improve on that. Just try and go all the way up. Just a $5 one here. So we've got Hughes and Pugs, or Hughes and Poogs from Germany, and Benita from, let's see, Benita, it's not showing me where she or he is from, so, okay, so we have 5-9 here. Against a button, and can we complete this hand? I think the really trashy hands like 9 deuce offsuit, you can make an argument for folding. Once you have a tiny bit more playability, I think this 10 chips that we have to invest here is reasonable. Very often the big blind's going to check and then we get to see a pot with good odds. He makes a very small raise here. I don't like this raise size from him because all he's guaranteeing is he has to play the pot and it's just a bigger pot. So I think now the pot's kind of getting a little bit out of hand. I'm just going to go ahead and fold. We've only put in 10 chips there that we've lost, so I'm happy to do that once in a while. So we get a lead from him. Fairly big bet on this scary looking board. We get a call from him. This is obviously going to be a bad card for the guy who's leading unless he has a flush, because he'll expect that when the button calls this bet, the button has one heart very often. He overbet jams the turn, so I'm not sure what he's got there. Deuce 9, pretty bad hand. We're not going to start limping the button with this kind of hand. We'll talk a bit more in the future sessions about your button raising range and whether it's okay to limp buttons. I mean, in general, probably not, but there are some circumstances or certain opponents that you might want to occasionally throw in a limp on the button with. Okay, so keep those questions coming. If you can keep them as simple as possible, that will help me to work out what you're asking. And apologies if I've not really answered everyone's questions. Do ask again and I should be happy to have another crack at it. Yeah, so Teddy, you were saying that you think the call with the pocket nines is okay once we get flop check raise. Yeah, I agree. I think it's very hard to get rid of that. I mean, if we bet really big and he check raised, it would have been more, let's say, more clear to us that we were behind there. But once we bet small, we just check here with the 7-8 worked out well because we've got our trips. I think our hand is strong enough to check raise here, so we'll go for a check. Hope that Hughes and Poohs bet. He did bet the last time round, so I think there's a decent chance he takes a stab at this pot. There's the stab that we're looking for. And we can check call here, but once we check call in this board, it already looks like we have a little something. So I'm going to prefer to just bet here. Just raise it up a little bit. See if we can get a bit more value. Maybe he has a flush draw or a top pair. We get a very quick fold from him. So we can lead with the 7s, but any way you play those trips, it looks pretty strong once you stick around. So again, we've got this button in from this guy. Once again, 10-7, a bit of playability. I'm going to go ahead and call. if the big blind raises again, okay, so this is the second time that he's done that. So next time round, if I'm in this situation, I'm not going to call the small blind if the button limps, because what I can deduce is that this player is going to be raising very wide here. So I don't want to play in these raised pots with my hands. You have a second pair there, but we won't worry about that. So next time round, I'm going to choose either a fold or a raise strategy if the button limps, because I'm not going to be able to keep completing because the big blind is going to try and take down the pot. What he needs to do if he's really wanted to try and take down this pot is to bet much bigger before the flop. He's really guaranteeing that he sees a flop here, and it's not really protecting his hand well enough. So 7-5, not strong enough to raise. Okay, so let's have a look. Gothi's team, you ask, you've always wondered whether it's better to limp hands with good playability in position, like 9-7 suited, or trash hands with some high card value, like Jack-3, when being shadowed. The problem when you raise a hand like 9-7 suited and get 3-bet shoved is you lose so much of your equity, so I prefer raise folding Jack-3 off and limping hand like 9-7 suited and calling a small raise. I think your logic is very good. If you're on the button or and the small blind heads up, and you limp a hand like Jack-3 and get raised, you're really not ever very happy with your hand. So King Jack here definitely got too much playability to be folding against the min raise here. We know this player's raised a few hands, although it's not showing up here, so I'm going to call here. I could 3-bet shove the King Jack. I think that would be legitimate, but I'm very happy to just see a flop here and go from there. And once again, overbet shoving this board. This is probably him saying that he has an ace here. I don't like his line, because if I had any part I wouldn't fold, and then he'd be getting his money in bad. And against most hands he's going to be fine with a smaller bet there. So I think that your reasoning makes a lot of sense. With those hands, so we get another limp from button, again not raising any hands. With the 8-10, I'm going to go ahead and fold. But I think with a hand like 10 Jack, I'd be happy to go and push that against this limp. But the 8-10 I'm going to fold, because as I said, I expect the big blind to just raise very widely here. And having said that, he checks, and there would have been our top pair. So my timing's not brilliant, but never mind. But what I would say about, what your argument, Gothic team, is you're saying, prefer raise folding Jack-3. I mean, Jack-3 is a pretty bad hand anyway, so unless you're expecting to get a lot of folds from your opponent, I'm not sure. I think you can let that kind of hand go if you want to. So we're going to raise the 10 Jack here. We don't want to call a 3-bet shove with this hand, but definitely got enough playability to raise first in. There's our 10 for us. So unless our opponent has an ace, I'm pretty happy with my hand. I don't really want to get check raised here, because then I have to make a difficult decision. So I'm going to go for a check back here. The only cards I don't want to see on the turn are kings and queens. So therefore, there's not many cards I don't want to see. Most of the cards are that we can say blanks, so I'm going to be happy to call a bet from this player if he does lead on the turn. And if he checks, then I'll start to bet for value. So what we've done is to play our hand as an inducing hand here. So having played it like that, we can't fold if he does bet here. And now that he's checked to us twice, we're going to make a bet here. There's not much value here. The only hand he could really call a bet with is a hand like, King Jack, which has a gut shot, or maybe an 8 that he's 10. He has called in. Now we've got a very interesting situation on the river. Well, we've actually got a full house. There's not that much value again, but I am going to make a bet. It will get very awkward if he check raises us, so we'll have to deal with that when it comes. But our hand's too strong not to bet, so we just bet and deal with the check raise if and when it comes. Okay, so this time the button is limping, and again with 9-10, not quite strong enough to shove, but we are getting a free play because it's our turn to be in the big blinds, so we can just go ahead and check here. We'll be check folding on this board with no equity. And very small lead here. I don't know what this means by this player, but he gets a quick fold, so pocket deuces, we're going to be shoving this against this limp. So this is now, let's say, the 5th or 6th time that this player is limp. Eventually I expect this player to show up with a trap hand, like pocket kings, but I'm not going to assume that this is the time when that is. And with my pocket pair and 14 big blinds, I'm just going to go ahead and push And what I'm hoping for is 2 folds here. If I get called by a hand like King Queen, that's not the worst thing in the world, but definitely want to be pushing our hand there. Jack 5, not strong enough to raise. So Stevie, you're observing that the play at these low stakes is very passive, and you're absolutely right. I think that's the kind of key observation about recreational and low stakes players. It's that they're very passive, and often when they bet, they just bet these very small probing amounts. So in a way that makes it easier to play because you're going to get often very good odds when they just bet these small amounts for your draws. And also it means that if your opponent does start betting heavily in the pot, they're often trying to tell you that they've really hit hard, and so it sometimes makes it easier to get away from your hands. Again, we get a button limp here for 5.5 big blinds. I think, again, this is not a good strategy here. He needs to decide whether his hand is strong enough to put all of his chips in, and that way he will generate some fold equity, or whether his hand is really just a weak hand, in which case he should fold. Once again, we have a very easy decision here with no hits. Did I build this HUD for jackpots? Stevie asks. Well, in the sense that I had an existing HUD for sit and goes, and I've just adapted it. Really, all I've done is to add an extra line with some limping stats here on the bottom, stats showing how often people limp in the small blind. Jack 4, it's fairly close against a very loose player. I'm going to go and fold this one. I don't think shoving would be too bad, but I'm going to go ahead and fold that one. Pocket 2s, very easy shove for anywhere up to 15, 16 big blinds probably. So certainly for 11 big blinds, we're going to be shoving the deuces. Again, we always want folds here, because when we're called, our best case scenario is like here, we've got a flip, not a good board for us with all those diamonds, and double pairs, so we're counterfeited. 3 bet dot steal means 3 bet against steal. That's the stat here. So yeah, with King 3 and with 4 big blinds, this player's limping every single hand. So I think King High is decent here. So we're just going to shove all in rather than checking back and then I need to hit something. We do get in with the best hand, so we need to cross our fingers and hold. Again, not a good board for us. Lots of outs for our opponent, but somehow we fade them, so that's nice. Okay, yeah, again, I don't like this strategy from him. I mean, I think he can push there with the 7-10. King 3 again, a little closer now. We have some more big blinds to work with, so I'm going to go ahead and fold here. Could push on this opponent, but since we've seen him calling with the 7-10 there, like he did in the last hand, I'm going to assume he'd call everything there. So I want to have a hand which either is a stronger hand, or I want to have the expectation of getting more folds pre-flop when I shove. So 8-5 suited. This is a little bit close. 7.7 big blinds. I'm going to go ahead and push this hand because our stack right now has some fold equity. And when the last time we shoved, we did show up with the pocket deuces. So we did show up with a legitimate hand, which is going to make people think that when we shove, we have decent hands. So therefore, that's kind of our last chance to shove with some fold equity. Really happy about this spot here. This is a kind of what I've been saying about all these limps. They've created a pot of 150 chips, which is about 2.5 times our stack. So when we shove here, if they don't call, we just pick up all these chips pre-flop, and if they do call, we're quite happy because very often this will be the best hand, as it is indeed here. So we need to, not a great flop. Our opponent flops. Oh no, I was thinking he flopped the nuts. That would have been the 10-jack. Goodness me, what am I doing? What am I doing? So yeah, Stevie's asking about whether we should have a stat against call. What I've got here are, this stat here, fold versus steal, is a stat that sort of will show us when our opponent against calls against steal. And then what I tend to do is just use these overall VPIP and raise first in stats to get a picture of how loose the opponent is. 8-10 suited for under 10 big blinds. We can see our opponent stat 9.3. Easy shove from button. So we're going to go ahead and push that hand, hoping for a fold here, but not too bad hand if we do get called. We've got a 2-1 chip lead here. So what will be interesting is if this opponent calls here, then it's much more difficult. This king 4 suited, I think it's a pretty strong hand, heads up. We can check here and see a flop or we can push. We'll go ahead and check this one, wait for something a little bit stronger. Having flop top pair, obviously we're going to be getting the money in, but once again, I'm going to let my opponent bet here because if I just go ahead and lead, then he can call if he has something, but if I check to him and let him bet, he can bet with everything he has. So that means he can bet with a 5, a jack, a king, or he can bet with a hand like 7-8. Obviously, once he's bet, I'm check raising all in, because we're too short really to do anything else. Obviously, if he has a better king, that sucks for me, but nothing I can do about it. If that's so, and he can definitely call me with worse hands like club draws, queen 10, jack x, 5x. So when your hand is good enough that you're happy to commit yourself, if you think there's a reasonable chance that they will bet, you should usually go for the check raise rather than leading out yourself. If it's multi-way, then it makes more sense to lead out because you can protect your hand a little bit more. And usually in three-way pots, people are a little bit more cautious about whether or not they bet. So with the jack 6, again, I probably won't push this hand if we get limped into. This is the first aggressive action this opponent has taken, basically, pre-flop. So I wouldn't assume that this signals a hand. We're not going to call with the jack 7. So happy to go ahead and fold that. 9-8 for 6.3 big blinds is definitely within the range of hands that we can profitably push. So we'll go ahead and shove there. So as you say, Stevie, there are definitely different ways to, let's say, different ways to skin a cat. You can choose which stats you feel most appropriate. I think there's some merit in your argument that we can use a call first in. I think our hand here, king 9, for less than 4 big blinds. The blind's just gone up. It's too strong to fold. You can see we're getting very good odds, 214 to 400. So we need to make the call with king high. We are slightly behind here, but we're still not doing too badly here. So I think it's a reasonable call. You can see here that this opponent does mainly want to get his money in when he's got a decent hand. Obviously with the suited ace, 10 big blinds, it's a very easy shove, not much to think about there. So the main reason I've got these VPIP and raise first, just because they were what I had when I was playing, for my sit and go. So I wanted to have a HUD that I didn't have to keep changing. And we get a shove here again. Last time we saw this player shove, he showed up with an ace, so I don't want to be calling light here against that shove. So fairly easy fold there. Once again, we're having a nice easy decision here from the button because we have a very easy shove with our ace high. Yeah, what we Gothi's team has asked about what I said there with skinning a cat. Certainly in English, you often say that there's more than one way to skin a cat. Now, I don't know why that arose. I don't know why lots of people were going around skinning cats. It's certainly not something I do personally, but there we are. It's a phrase that we say. So we're going to shove our a7 against this limp. Again, the limp usually is signifying not a very strong hand. So we're pretty happy when he limps here. We are getting it in very much the best of the hand. He has the best hand now. So we don't get there with our flush draw and our many overcards. So pretty tough for us now, but we're very happy each time our opponents let us get our money in good. In the long run, that's the most important thing, is getting your money in good, making correct plays. In the short run, you will lose a lot of those spots where you're ahead, but not when you turn a full house with 2-4. So that's fine. We're okay with that. Okay, Gothi's team is suspicious of this skinning a cat business. Yeah, so last time he limped, he had 4-6 suited. So once again, I think with a suited king, a little bit under 10 big blinds, I'm going to go for the push here. I think he can definitely call with worse than king high, like 10 jack, queen x. And again, once we show up with a real hand there to push on him, it makes him more likely to fold, but because he can see that we're not just pushing on him with any two cards. Okay, 9-7, a little bit close here. 8.3 big blinds. Definitely can shove this hand. I'm going to go for a limp stab and see what happens. Just try something a little bit different. If we get shoved on, we're happy to fold. And on this board, I'm just going to be leading. He leads for pot size here. This is a very unbelievable bet, but with 9 high, there's not much I can do about it. He can definitely do this with a 5, so, and he may be planning not to fold. So even though I would like to have limped and stabbed myself, and he's taken that opportunity away from him, I'm not going to try and play back by shoving here. I think you see a lot of people just overestimating how much fold equity they really have and trying to fight for these pots when their opponents kind of told them that they're not folding. So do say really not a strong hand at all, so very happy to fold that one. And Jack 3, we won't be calling a shove with this hand. So got about 5 minutes left, so we'll maybe get this one more in. Let's push the Queen 9 suited to begin with. Very easy push for under 10 big blinds. We do get called again. He's not calling us light. Pretty nice flop for us. Flush draw plus pair. Yep, we're good. Okay. Oh, hang on, what happened there? I thought we won that hand. Ah, we got counterfeited on the river again. Wow, it's not our day for getting counterfeited. Ace-6, happy to push here against the limp. Yeah, way to run bad. Okay, so there's our 6. We just need to fade a 10. We do, so we have a few more chips. We're not going to give up just yet. We're going to still continue to make the best decisions we can. Obviously, easy push with pocket 10s. Now we are hoping for a call here, and we do get called, so unless he hits a jack or another 8, we're going to be good. Fingers crossed. Yeah, okay. So we're back in the game now with more or less our starting stack. So despite running bad, we're not doing too badly. Going to call here with the ace deuce if he shoves. And once again, against the limp, very happy to get it in with ace high here. And there's a call. So once again, we're still getting our money in good here. Not a good flop for us. He has an open ender. He's hit. So only an ace will do, and we don't get it. All right, we have 4 minutes left. Let's try and squeeze in one more game because I want you guys to get as much value as you can from the coaching. So one more try. If we run over by 5 minutes, hopefully I won't get too big a slap on the wrist. And we've got another 4x here, which is doing pretty well in terms of the multipliers that we've had today. Yeah, absolutely. Gothy's team has observed that the limp trap with the 8-9 was pretty devious. Okay, so we have ace-8 suited here. I'm going to go ahead and raise this one. A little bit too strong of a hand not to raise versus a button limp. I've actually got this player marked as a bad player. So I've obviously played him in the past. He snap jams over my limp, so not much I can do about this. Too many hands with good equity against my ace high, so not much I can do about that. I've actually got some notes. Let's see what my notes say. 17 big blinds. Oops, hang on, 17 big blinds. Let's try and get this limp stab. 3-bet shove, queen 10 off suit versus button. Okay, well that's good to know. We'll try a limp stab with our 10-8. We get a very quick check from him, and we have a pair, so definitely going to be betting here. Also have a gut shot, so hoping for a fold here, but not the end of the world if we get called there. Jack 10 off, strong enough to raise. Just going to keep it simple. Keep to our strategy of raising decent hands when we're on the button, and try not to play too many big pots when we're out of position with weak holdings. This lead is pretty fishy, so I'm going to go ahead and make a raise here. If it does turn out that he has, let's say, a hand like king high, we still have reasonable backdoors here because many turn cards will give us a straight draw. Obviously, it's not going to be good if he has a pair here. This is very bizarre that he bets here and then calls. I expect this is his way of saying he has ace high or king high. Not sure whether we should go for the bluff jam with the jack 10. I'm going to just call this bet. Hope to get there on the river. And this is a good card for his range, like I said. I think he often has an ace here, so we'll go ahead and fold her. Strange line from him. Definitely not going to be profitable in the long run, but not much we can do. With our king 3 suited, we could push on him, but I'm going to just see a flop. Hope to hit something. There's our nuts there, so let's hope he does a lot of betting like he did last time. I'm going to check, call here, and hope that I can get him to invest a bit more on the turn. With a bit of luck, he's hit the ace, and we'll make a much bigger bet. Nothing there. So now we're going to check raise because we're trying to build the pot so that we can shove the river, and really hope that he does have an ace here and pushes. And we're all in the river. If he has a better 2 pair, nothing much we can do about it. Yeah, but we do get there. Well, we had the best hand, so I don't know what he had. I'm guessing he had Queen 5, so he limped Queen 5, which is why I've marked him as a bad player, and then went kind of broke with it. Definitely not a player I would recommend. We're going to raise our Queen 8 suited. Has decent playability with flop a flush draw, so definitely going to be betting our flush draw. Not much to say about that. If you flop a flush draw, you need a very good reason not to bet it. Stevie74, do you play any jackpots for yourself? At the moment, I'm playing a lot of this format. In the past, I've been playing mostly sit and goes. So at the moment, I'm playing mostly this kind of format. But in terms of the future, we'll just see where it goes. I mean, it's not. I've always enjoyed, playing lots of different formats. So I'm certainly not going to sort of commit myself to, playing these for the long haul. But we'll see. I mean, in the poker economy today, things change very quickly. Games that are profitable at one stage can quickly become unprofitable. So a little bit close here with the ace-3. I don't hate calling here. We know that this play is pretty kind of crazy, but on the other hand, he's mostly been limping hands. So when he raises, I give him credit for having a bit more of a stronger hand. So this is kind of not a hand I'm desperate to call. Do I sometimes play 50s? I have played a lot of these $50 jackpots and 60s over on PokerStars. So yeah, going to not play this 7-3. Really bad hand here. And again, we can see whenever you complete in the small blind, there's always the danger that you don't get to realize your equity because the big blind can push on you. So now with under 20 big blinds and a very short stack here in the small blind, I don't really want to get 3-bet shoves on, so I'm just going to opt for a shove with the pocket fours. Get a very quick call from him, which I'm not happy about, but I'm happy when I see Jack 3. So fingers crossed, need to fade a few outs. So that's good. I don't know why he's calling the Jack 3 here, like it's pocket aces. He may need glasses. And I'm going to raise my King Queen suited here against the button limp. I can shove on this limp, it's definitely profitable, but my hand is so playable and so strong, I really actually want this player to call here. I want to see a flop, and obviously with an ace high board, keep it simple, we're just betting here. It's a nice scary board, so if he doesn't have either spades or top pair, it's going to be hard for him to call. 3-10 suited, we'll just try and limp stab. And we hit a pair, so we're going to be betting. We're going to bet here with our whole range, but the fact that we have a pair and some backdoors, it's just like an extra reason to bet effectively. If we do get called there, we can turn some more equity. So with the King Jack here, against this limp, it's a little bit closer. I think the best plan is just to push now. The stacks have got a bit shorter now, so our incentive to just take this pot down is increased. I wouldn't mind a small 2.5 raise there, but I think it's easier just to play. So we're going to min raise our 9-10. It's a decent hand on the button. Just keeping it simple. Don't need to do anything that crazy or ambitious to be comfortably winning in these games. Okay, so we have 9-5 suited. This is a push for this kind of stack size, so you definitely can profitably shove here. However, against this particular opponent, I'm just going to limp stab because it's not going to make me a lot of money when I push in the long run, based on the likelihood of him calling. Whereas if I can just limp stab here and push with my stronger hands, that's going to work well for me. So if he's not fighting against my limp stabs, there's no reason for me to change my strategy here. So with the ace-4, we get a raise from this guy. Again, kind of unhappy about this raise because this is the first time he's raised. And once again, we have like the real worst possible ace here. So against any kind of reg or a decent player, knowing anything about this is just be a very easy shove. I think it's even fine to shove here. I feel like a real nit for folding here, but I just feel like he's not going to show up with any worse hands there, and we can kind of continue to just sort of play our way to victory there. Don't know if he showed his cards out. Yeah, ace jack. Very happy to get it in here. So whether he raises or anything else. Now I'm really happy whether he's going to raise fold. We'll see whether he raise folds or raise calls. And we do see, this is what I mean. You have to go with your read. When someone who hasn't raised a hand suddenly starts min raising when they've got a very short stack, very often they turn up with the big hand. So there's no reason to think that he didn't have a big hand with the ace-3. So I'm going to pat myself on the back there, making a good fold there. And we're just going to limp stab the 10-7. We have to get back into the game, having been cooled a bit there. So nothing we're not going to change anything, just going to keep betting. Once we get called here, I'm not going to try and bluff this guy. He's been, let's say, very honest, just check folding when he doesn't have anything. So I'm not going to try and push him off his hand. So I don't expect him to fold anything here. He leads on the river, so whether he has flush, air, 4, 5, doesn't matter. Get a quick fold from him, so that's nice. And 5-9. Yeah, a little bit close here. Now let's go for a min raise with this hand. I meant to min raise. I've made it 3x, which really sucks because when he shoves on me, the odds I'm getting are good, but I can never call because I have a bad hand. So watch out for those misclicks. They can be very costly in the long run. Okay, so pushing the pocket sixes here against this limp, hoping he's trapping us with pocket fours. Yeah, I agree with you, Gothi's team. You're absolutely right. If you can't adjust your play based on your opponent, then you're missing most of the value that comes from poker, which is why, you know, we definitely want to have some kind of starting hands charts to get ourselves off the ground. But you definitely have to have the ability to veer from those starting hand charts. Otherwise, you're just missing value, or, you know, sort of going broke light when you don't need to. Once again, we have a raise from this. Jack 9 suited plays super well. I'd never normally fold this hand. We can make a call here. It's pretty thin against this player though, and we're kind of happy that we didn't hit here because we can just check fold with a clear conscience. I think it would even be fine to fold this hand. Just an observation about his bet size here. Really big bet on this very dry board. There's no draws on this board at all, so no need to bet that much if he has top pair. And 6-4 suited, let's try our limp stab. We're going to check there. We've got a few back doors here. A gut shot for a 5, so we're definitely going to be betting. We get called here. So the question is whether we should barrel this scare card. I think it's close. I think it's reasonable to have one more stab at this. I'm going to bet a little bit bigger here. I don't expect him to fold a 10 here, but I do think he can fold a deuce or a 3. And if he does call with the deuce or a 3, we still have outs against that hand. So sometimes in these limp stab pots, you can use a scare card on the turn to further another bet. And I think it's when you have a draw as a backup, it's always going to be reasonable to do it. We'll give this guy a break here with this real piece of garbage hand. And see how we're getting on. So this is turning into a bit of a marathon battle here for the $10. We're both trying to scoop the prize here. So there's a limp from him. I don't want to play back at the limp with my 4-8. And with nothing on the flop, I'm happy to check fold. Where is this player from? Switzerland, okay. So 4-10. All right, we'll go back to our limp stab. He's playing in a fairly passive manner overall. Quite neutral, which makes sense. So, all right, we have the 4-10, and we're going to go ahead and bet like we did last time. So we can continue. If the turn brings a queen or a king, that will give us a gut shot. So those are the kinds of cards that we might bet again on. This card doesn't help us, so I'm not going to barrel again. Just go ahead and check and see what he's calling us with. Okay, so he did have a pair, so we're not going to get him off that kind of card there. So definitely good to give up there. He gives us a free big blind. Queen 7 suited, I think strong enough to raise, so we'll go ahead and raise this hand. Could push this for 12.6 big blinds, but again, like I said, I just want to keep it simple against this player because he's not challenging me very much. He's not raising many hands, which means he's giving me lots of walks. When he has a strong hand, he makes it super clear that he has a strong hand. Jack 7, a little bit strong, a little bit stronger than hands at 10-6, so we'll go for a raise. I'm going to bet once on this board and then give up. Once he calls a raise, he should have a fairly strong range. And then we say, he actually leads into me again, so he's saving me my continuation bet. This is what we were talking about earlier. If he actually has a queen here, like queen, jack, king, queen, he should be checking here, letting me put some dead money in, and then check raising all in. All he's doing here is saving me the need to bet. So we're grateful to him for his honesty. Let's see. Okay, queen 8 suited, pretty nice hand. Ace 6, yeah, we have 10.5 big blinds, so we're all in. Once again, hoping for a fold here, which we do get, that's good. 7-8. offsuit. Let's see. We're going to raise from our opponent. Again, no need to call raises with these weak hands when we know that his range is strong. So pocket queens. Yeah, so if he had started raising against our limps, I would have limped this to induce him, but he's not doing that. So I'm just going to go ahead and min raise, because normally I would shove here, but we do want action on our hand. So hopefully he has a jack, so let's just bet half pot, a little bit under half pot actually, because it's a very, very dry board. Hopefully he got the jack and check raises all in, that would be nice. There we go. So this is fine by him. I don't think there's anything wrong with his play. This is what I was saying, like if he does have the jack, I mean he gets trips on the river, so nothing we can do about that. But I think it probably means that he didn't have top pair when he led into us. So a bit unlucky there to get sucked out, been sucked out a few times, but I think like we said, in the long run, all you need to do is get your money in good and you'll be fine. So thank you so much everyone for coming along today. Hope you enjoyed it. And do go to the feedback thread for this one and the other, the new thread that I created with the details of the following coachings. Post any comments or questions that you have, and I look forward to seeing you Friday week. So that will be Friday the 13th. Thank you so much, guys. Have a lovely rest of the weekend.